I am here with, let me make sure I get this right, Chandni Parekh. Did I get
Yes,
that?
Chandni Parekh. Yes.
Chandni Parekh. Okay, gotcha. The accent is on the first syllable. All right,
Yeah.
got it. And this is the first time we're meeting. I mean, this is how people meet, I guess, in this age. But we are with the same agency, CESD, and you have been, I think, just sort of really coming up in the business the last couple of years. At least I've been taking notice, seeing your socials. You're on, let's see, Bugs Bunny Builders. Is it now?
Yes.
Good
Yes.
for you. I
Bugs Bunny
read for
Builders.
that. Got
Nice.
nothing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, nothing. Nothing. But anyway, thank you for taking some time out and chatting with me and letting people know what you're up to these days.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. First off, I have to tell you, I looked through we followed each other, I believe, on Twitter first, and
Right.
that's where you're at. So,
Right.
it's an honor to be here, and your resume is so incredible. I genuinely feel like I should be interviewing you and asking you
It's
advice, questions, all of it.
that's very kind of you. I've had a long time to build that resume up, and I would tell you that you're probably headed for the exact same thing, if not more, because Lord knows from talking to you before we started recording, you've got a lot more on the ball than I did when I was coming up. I was just I would do my auditions and I would get whatever I would get, but I don't think I was nearly as proactive as you are. You've got an acting class after this, and you are very active in social media. You understand how to promote what you're doing, and I think you just sort of you know the game.
Yeah, well, it's 2023, right? Like this stuff is all very new for everybody. TikTok is still new. All of it. It's just tools that I get to use because of the times. That's all. So
Right.
yeah, I'm probably a little overactive to be honest on
It's
social, but
I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if I ever had an agent tell me, "Hey, Chris, why don't you calm down with
on the promos,
yeah on the
yeah.
promo? Come on, we prefer to have to to sell people on you." Let's put it this way. This is how hard it was for them to get me to do promotion for myself. Years ago, they said, "Chris, you're one of the few clients we have that does nothing to promote themselves." Right? I mean,
Amazing.
and we mean you do nothing. And I said, "Okay." And I went and built a MySpace page. And they said, "That
Aw.
doesn't count. All right. You don't even have a website. Can you help us a little bit?" And I understood I needed to do a little bit more. And this was before really Facebook became a thing, and I came from the world of stand-up comedy. I should have known that there were always comedians out there that were better at self-promotion than others, and even if they weren't as seasoned or experienced,
Or
the
talented,
person,
yeah. They were just good at that business part of it.
exactly. So I just from talking to you briefly, you told me you're an army brat, so you're from kind of everywhere, correct?
Everywhere. Yes, I was born in Vicenza, Italy. I grew up there. I spent about 5, 6 years in Venice. So I lived in Venice we stayed in Vicenza, I think, when I was 1 year old. And then
Okay.
moved around a lot, Germany, Switzerland, and eventually we came to the States. And in between this time, I would spend every summer going back and forth to India, where my family is, and
Okay.
grandmothers, aunts, uncles, all my cousins that are like my brothers and sisters now. So yeah, spent a lot of time everywhere.
Gotcha. And where in India is your family everywhere? Are they scattered, or are they mainly from one region?
Some of them are pretty scattered now. I have cousins that have moved here to the States. They're in New York, and I have a lot of family in Mumbai, India.
Okay, gotcha.
Have you made it out there yet?
No, and
Okay.
I'm not nearly as traveled as I should be, but once you have kids, a lot of that just gets put on the back burner. Like my wife and I, for our honeymoon back in 2010, we went to let's see, Madrid, Toledo, Barcelona, Paris, and then London. But we only had 12 days to do that because I booked The Simpsons about 1 week before I got married.
Oh my
And
God, what
no,
a
2
beautiful
weeks.
time in your life.
Yes. Oh yeah, no. 2 weeks before I got married, I booked The Simpsons, And then we got married April 17th. I got on the show, I think, on April 3rd. And then we had a honeymoon planned, and they said, you're going for a few weeks here, and you've just been on the show for a few weeks. You sure you want to do that? And I said, I'm sure I don't want to do that. I'm going to stay. And we planned it to go later during a hiatus, and we only had 12 days. So we had to shrink the honeymoon experience. But it was, yes, it was a nice time. And I'm fascinated by everywhere. But I am particularly fascinated with India because the history, I'll never forget, we had an agent at CESD. He's moved on to, I suppose, other things, but Samit Iyengar.
And Samit, yes.
I know. I think he was joking one time. Somebody said, Samit, yeah, how old is the Iyengar name? And he said, not very old, maybe 600 years old. I thought, it's only 3 times as old as the country that you're living in, yeah. The history of India is so incredibly rich that you can barely scratch the surface of it, and just the cultural topography you have there is astounding.
Right.
So I would honestly, I would love to go, but I don't know how. Like if your immune system's not ready for it, it's going to be a little bit of a different experience.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I hear that. Do you eat like when you're traveling, or when you go? Have you been to Mexico yet? And are you able to eat?
I only did Mexico a couple of times because I was a comic on a cruise ship, and so you're getting, you're not getting the authentic Mexican experience.
You got to try it out. You got to test it. You got to go to India and eat some street food and just see what happens. It's worth it.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. No, yeah. Street food in Kolkata. Everything's going to be just fine, Chris.
As you see the guys with their oily hands here.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know what? I'll bet the locals have no problem with that, whereas I would be on a stretcher probably in about 20 minutes. So, you know what? I think I'll just get some lamb biryani from down the street. And
yes.
Which, by the way, I think this is really funny that, the show Hot Ones? The chicken wing show. He's never had an Indian celebrity on there. Probably because I don't think he has. Probably because they would laugh at him. Because
they'd be stuck in their fingers like, this is nothing.
I understand that maybe some of the most powerful spices in cuisine come from India. I could be wrong, and frequently am.
No, yes. Absolutely. My I recently went in December, and I was there for quite some time. And as soon as I get there, I'm nervous about eating the street food and everything, because I basically grew up here in America. Yeah. So I wanted to test it, but I did eat everything because I'm like, I'm gonna make sure I can eat my country's food. So I did fine. But my spice level, I think it's high here. It's about a 0.
Really?
In India, like a 0 tolerance. And my family tells me they'll make something that I can eat, but it is very spicy. And they would tell the waiters or family members, and they would just tell them, she likes her food very bland. Make sure. I'm like, I'm not bland. Like, it's just that I can't eat your level. But they would describe it very casually as like, she prefers bland food. I'm like, that's not the case.
My goodness. Okay.
But in comparison, it is.
What are the ingredients that make it that spicy? Like, what is there a pepper they use? Is there a certain array of spices they use? I mean, what is it? What's the operative element
I wish
there?
I knew. I wish I could tell you. There's so many different spices. I mean, one meal there has like 70 different beautiful ingredients, all put in at a certain time while they're cooking. And so it's, I don't know it's the best food I've ever had in my life, but I just have to really take my time.
I remember just getting I used to live in Pacific Palisades, and there was an Indian restaurant there, and everybody does takeout. Like, they have dining in, almost no one eats inside. Everyone gets takeout. And I used to get the lamb biryani, and they give you, it's like the size of a hubcap, the plate. It's like, I'm never going to eat all this. It's delicious. And I would get their vegetable soup. And you're thinking vegetable soup's just going to be bland. It would pop. It was so spicy. Yes. But boy, if you're congested, it's going to open them sinuses right up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's been my experience so far. Now, with that background, do you speak multiple languages? I mean, or do you just have sort of conversational fluency in several? I would think.
I wish I grew up knowing Italian and speaking Italian, and my
Hmm.
parents spoke Gujarati in my home, and then outside is Italian, of course.
Right.
Which the only thing I speak now is Gujarati, but if in India I speak it, and it's okay.
So,
But
is that a
it's Gujarati.
dialect? That's a
Yeah, so
dialect of
it
Hindi?
exactly.
Okay.
So it's like a sub language off of Hindi. So I understand Hindi a little bit, but Gujarati I understand in full. It just takes me a second to speak, to form full sentences and everything. I have to be in
Gotcha.
India to be able to be in that mindset, I guess, because I don't have anyone to speak with here in in LA.
I was wondering, I mean, there must be some kind of contingency here that, like,
Yeah.
my friend Anjali Bhimani, now that doesn't mean
Right,
she speaks your dialect, but
right.
I would think that there must be some
Yes,
sort of sort of cultural circuit that people
there
are kind
is.
of plugged into.
Yes, there is. And it's funny because I haven't really, we were talking before this, I think, about, you know, just knowing how to put ourselves out there and everything. And I never really did a lot of networking. I don't know about you. Have you done like networking circuit stuff or
My
me
let's put it
neither?
this way, you're going to pick up on a pattern here. If you take me to a party, I'll talk to everybody. I can get along with anyone. I like people. I think they're interesting. I think everyone has a story. But if you tell me I need to go network, I'm
Ugh,
just going to get this long face. I'm going to roll my eyes. And when I moved out here, I had a manager for stand up. And she said, Chris, you need to be hanging out at the Improv. And I said, why? If I don't have a set, you just need to
yeah.
network. You need to this and that. And I said, I hate that. Everyone's desperate. Everyone is there for the
Yeah.
same reason because they hope they get seen. They're trying to look cool without looking like they're trying to look cool. I
Right.
hate that. I just and
Yeah.
so I didn't do it. Not very much.
I I am totally with you, which actually, because we are where we are in our careers too, I also feel good about the fact that my like booking these jobs, they come from my agents. It's always been from my agents. It's
Right.
never been from networking. I've never gotten
Yeah.
anything from meeting someone. I wish I did, and I hear about it all the time of people becoming friends and them knowing your skill and work, and that's beautiful. But when I was starting out, I was too shy. I was too nervous to be out there like that. So
Really.
now I'm trying to open myself up, and even doing your podcast. This is a really important one for me because you are a fellow voice actor and a very like talented, well-known one. So
Oh, you.
um, I'm just trying to say yes to more things that I would usually shy away from because I'm like, well, I feel like I have some things on my resume now that I'm very proud of. And so now I'm starting to say yes. And to go
Gotcha.
back, that goes back to like, yeah, there's a lot of South Asian networking events that I've never been to a single one of them, but there's people that are out there that are in our industry. And I'm like, yeah, why am I not? Maybe I should.
Right.
Maybe it's time.
Now, do you think that it's just because you've picked up a few credits that you feel like now, okay, you're kind of justified in doing this, or are you just becoming more confident the more seasoned you become? Because it isn't
Oh, I
always
love
just
how you
about
worded
credits.
that. I
Yeah,
want to go with the latter. Yeah. Maybe I am becoming more comfortable.
yeah. You don't
Um,
strike me as uncomfortable
yeah.
as overly shy or anything like that.
Yeah. I think the credits and being proud of the work and everything, it really does help. And the more you do these things, the
Yeah,
easier it gets. And the more, I remember the first time I walked in the studio and now I'm probably loud and obnoxious. And that's great because that's who I am.
right.
So.
Well, there's also been a mix of on camera and voice acting as well, right? Is it kind of 50-50 for you these days?
No, on camera is a little slower these days, I think, with everything going on right now as well. But
Right.
the voiceover has always been nice and consistent. And then on camera, I have managers for my on camera, Robbie Cass and Roxana Rainin. And oh my gosh, they're incredible.
Okay.
But because they know how busy the voiceover stuff is, they're very selective on what they send me for on camera,
Right.
which I'm very grateful of too. So
Hmm.
yes, when they do send me a project, it's something that I do work on. But yeah, it's been a little slower in the auditioning these days. But or do you do on camera as well?
No, I haven't really done it in a long time. I lived in Orlando in my early to mid 20s, and that's when I was creating my sort of stand-up career and my acting career at the same time. And in Orlando, especially in the 90s, you're mainly reading for the under fives. It's not very big parts, but it was just enough to get your training wheels off. And I, built a little bit of a resume there, and it never really carried over to here because I was spending more time in stand-up. And after 3 years of touring, after having moved here, I thought, I'm tired of being on the road. Honestly, I would just love to do voice acting so I could stay in one place. I don't have to get new headshots all the time. I don't have to jump through those hoops. And that's kind of what happened. So it's not that I wouldn't do on camera, but frankly, they would have to come and find me. And rumor has it that there are a lot of actors out there that are looking for work.
Yeah, actively looking. And
yeah. And in my case, too, I'm way past the ingenue age. It'd be just character stuff, which, again, I'd be fine with. But I will say this. As far as voice acting goes, they've gotten very specific with demographics as well. And I've seen a lot of the work that I was used to getting going away. And I have no problem with it because I know for the longest time, everybody just wanted a white guy. They wouldn't say it, but that's what they would cast. And, me and the rest of the white guys just got used to getting cast and everything. And after a while, they started thinking, maybe non-white guys, maybe we should try that. And I don't mind it. Who the hell am I to have a say in that? So, things opened up for people that had to sit on the sidelines for the longest time. And at least in your case, do you feel like you were sidelined in some regards and now things are opening up in ways that they hadn't before?
Absolutely. I think when I first started, I was unsure about a lot of things. There's funny insecurities that you go into, such as my name, Chandni. I'm like, do I change it? What do I do with this?
I'm sure someone had an opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and my managers are wonderful, and they encouraged me to just stick with it, embrace my name. And I'm like, well, I want like a name that stands out. That's like something that rolls off the tongue. Chandni Parekh does not. It's not going to, but no. I like it, and it's me. So, yeah, there's little things like that come up of trying to, just stand out or be remembered and not get lost in that Rolodex of the names they're familiar with and everything. So it's nice that they're kind of opening up the doors and taking on new talent.
So while you were busy, working at your craft on camera, the voice acting was happening. And what do you think was the thing that put you over the top with any particular job? Was it just banging your head against the wall like most of us do, sheer numbers, or was it an approach you took and you thought, you know what, I think this time I was more relaxed, I think I felt the copy a little bit better, something just kicked in, or was it just numbers?
Yeah. No, the numbers, it took me a long time to book my first thing with CSD was my first on voiceover agent. And I'm with them also commercial. Are you also commercial? I feel like we just talked about this.
The funny thing is my entire family is basically with the agency. My wife and I and our kids are technically there for print. And then my son is with them for voice acting, and we told him we're not really interested in him pursuing theatrical right now, but he's kind of there. My daughter has done a couple of auditions for them, and even my father-in-law has done some print work for them. So.
My goodness, you have a family of stars, literally. I had no idea. That's huge. Wow.
That's a lot. My son's actually, he joined the union at 6.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was 30. He joined at 6.
Wow.
I know. There's just something about him, it just...
And he's blowing us out the water. That's impressive.
Yeah. But it takes a little time. It takes as long as it takes. You didn't book anything right away. It took a little time, but there was something that happened, right?
It took about a year probably for me to book. And yes, every single year. So I signed with CESD in 2018, and I was just hustling my own stuff and doing non-union work for about 2 years probably. Right. Maybe, I think I started in 2016, 17, taking it a little more seriously and being like, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to do.
Gotcha.
And then after I signed with CESD, which I had a meeting with them in the commercial department, my managers got me into the commercial department. And while I was there,
Right.
they were pitching me to Kathy. So, yeah, they ended up, while I was there sitting in my meeting for my commercial department, my managers were in the background, like, you need to hear her, like, throw her in your booth. So they threw me right in the booth to do an audition and signed me across the board the next day. So I was...
That's great.
Yeah, it was great. And I just loved Kathy instantly. And she's still my point of contact. All of them are, really.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
She's wonderful. But I didn't know if I was any good because it took me almost a year. So I would be sending in these auditions thinking, maybe I overshot. Maybe I don't know what they're doing with me. How long did it take you to book your first major gig?
Well, we should be fair here. I signed with them in 2002, and I was with Pat Brady before at KSA in 2000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had already done some work in the like mid 90s. I was and am the voice of Spider-Man on the Spider-Man theme park ride in Orlando.
Oh,
and
cool.
Yeah, the people were doing it in LA, but they booked me out of Orlando because I was just doing scratch tracks for Sound Deluxe in Orlando because that's where I lived at the time. That's so they kind of knew me. And based on that, I did a couple of other rides for Universal because they knew me from the Spider-Man ride. And then in 2000, they asked me, John Rust and Bernadette Bowman were working on the ride. They were producing the ride. And they said, Chris, do you have an agent? I said, no. And they said, well, we can get you a meeting with Pat Brady. She's great. I think you guys might hit it off. And so with Pat, I sat down, and I had been doing stand-up for 10 years and 7 years professionally at that point. So I had done hundreds of shows and things like that. And I sat down and said, Pat, I can do any voice you need me to do. I thought this is no time to be humble. And she looked at me and thought, Chris. Yeah, I know. and she thought, okay, go home and make me a demo with 25 different voices on it. And I went home and made her a demo with 55 different voices on it. And it was impressions, characters, you name it. And then she went through it with me afterwards. She said, okay, I'll sign you. And we trimmed it down and got into a workable demo. And I booked very sporadically that first couple of years, but she told me something that I know that you would instinctively feel from CESD. She said, I've got to trim some of the roster, and she saw the look on my face. She said, don't worry, you could not book for a year, and I wouldn't drop you. I know what you can do.
Ooh, yes.
Yes. And 2001 was a little better than 2000. 2002 was better, and then 2003 was my first full year with CESD, and it was kind of within the first couple of weeks I was booking things. But that's because they give you a mountain of copy, and 20 years ago, it was not as competitive as it is now.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. You have to read, we both now have to read against exponentially more people than I had to read against 20 years ago. Sometimes...
Yes, but you were reading against people that were like, I mean, it was very hard to get into that percentage of people that were even getting those auditions because it was the same over and over again, which was amazing.
Right.
So, you were up against the best of everybody as well at that time.
Yes, thank you for pumping up my ego so I don't have to, but I mean...
You know the names that were on that list with me. Like,
yes. Although they really do cast a very wide net now because during the pandemic, they kind of figured out how to do everything remotely. And then they realized, well, then we don't have to just find LA and New York talent, do we? We can find anybody who's got a good setup who's union. Or they may choose to go non-union.
Yeah.
So I truly believe that back in the day, you were up against dozens of people and maybe sometimes 100 or so. I mean, the biggest job, commercial job where I had to book against a large field was, I think I booked something over about 400 people. And that was the largest I was aware of. Every other time, it was probably a few dozen. Now, I truly believe, even for the small jobs, you're probably up against hundreds of people. That's my
I think
guess.
you're right. Yes, I think you're right. It's intimidating, especially because if you're out here in our city and have friends that are in the industry and other
Yeah.
agents and they're auditioning for the same things, you're like, who didn't read for this role?
Exactly. And I'm sure you talk to your friends and you ask, did you get that? Did you know anyone who did get that?
Yes,
Did
yes,
that even book in town? I mean,
right.
right. So
Yeah,
it is a different ball game, and the fact that and yes, I have the same thing to say about CESD that you do. They've done very well by me. I've done right by them, and I've been with them forever. I have no plans to be anywhere else because when they know
yeah,
you, they get you. Then
yeah.
that's what it means.
Yes. I love hearing you say that, and I know it's because it's true and it's very genuine, but there's so many people that I talk to and they're like, "How's your agent?" I'm like, "I love CESD. They've taken care of me from the start. I've
Yeah.
never felt like I was just in a roster. I feel like they really do know every single one of their talent, and they know they send me the most perfect auditions and opportunities, and I can't
Hmm.
believe I'm like they really know who I am and what I'm capable of and
Right.
how my range is, how I don't have to just be this high-pitched, really fun, bubbly girl. I could also be like a villain or a little boy or a grandma. I could and
Right.
yeah, I love that they send me everything and personalize it for me in such a way where I feel like I have a very good solid relationship with them, and
Now,
we're very lucky because I don't.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
I am aware of that because I did it for years as a comic where there's no union. There's, some people have managers, some people don't. A lot of times you're advocating for yourself. You're doing the booking, you're negotiating the pay, you're negotiating everything about it. And when you live in that wilderness for a while and then finally land in a place where everything is a bit more structured and a bit more above board, you do
right.
understand that it's good to have it the way we have it. And
Yeah,
like in your case, you said how long ago was it that you signed with CESD?
2018.
2018. Okay. You had the benefit then of at least being able to go into the office and meet them and see them in person because
Yes.
in 2020 all that stopped.
Yeah, completely. They got
Yeah.
rid of the whole side of the
Right.
audition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's no longer necessary for almost any agency. Now, one day they
Right.
may bring back some of that stuff, but since everyone reads from home, I mean, I have a booth right there. Just off
Yes.
camera, I've got a full-size
Right.
professional booth.
Same.
Yeah,
Same.
exactly. So I only recently went into a studio because they said you have to read on this mic. So for this job, we use
Oh.
this particular mic. It was
Oh.
yeah, it was a sound alike, and they it's for a character that has been around for a while, so they all
Yeah.
use kind of the same mic. But
That's
otherwise,
helpful. Yeah.
yeah,
That helps.
but otherwise everything is right there in that booth. And I always offer to go in if somebody needs me to, but they usually say, "No, if you're at home, you're good."
Yeah. Now, do you
But
like recording at home or do you like going into the studio for actual gigs?
I like them both. I mean, if anyone says we would really like you to come in, then I'm more than happy to because, like you, I'll just talk your ear off. I'll come in, I'll glad
Yeah.
hand everybody, I'll sit and tell stories. After we're done, of course,
Yes.
you're there for a job. But no, I love being around people.
Yes.
But when the pandemic hit and we moved farther outside of the city because we needed the space, now I'm looking at longer commutes. And so if they give me the option, I'll read at home. But I've offered for The Simpsons. I said I'm more than happy to come in, not just to read
Yes.
just with me, but I'll read opposite somebody who has a different day, just to help them out. And they
Yeah.
said appreciate it, but your setup is fine, so you can read from where you are. And
Yeah.
so I will do either one.
That's incredible. It blew my mind that yeah, I get to do Simpsons here. Like I was jumping for joy that day. Like I can't believe Homer's in my booth.
Yeah, exactly. So have you been doing like the background walla stuff like that?
Yes, Sam Frischman. Oh, I love this man.
Yep.
Yes. Whenever he books me in, I'm like, yes, I will clear anything for you.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's how I started, by the way, on I did
Oh,
background
really?
walla first. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Back in, oh my goodness, I'd say at least more than 15 years ago. Yeah. More
Wow.
than 15
Oh,
years ago.
and then you also do table reads with them. You've done like
Yeah.
real, like, whoa, that's incredible. How's
Yeah.
that?
And when we did those live in person, it's just the most fun thing you could think of. It's like 60, 70 people in an enormous conference room and the most brilliant actors sitting around you. And sometimes the
Yes.
people you would meet. I mean, I remember
Yeah.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was at a table read.
No way. Oh,
Just hanging
wow.
out, you know. I met David Mamet at a table read.
Wow.
Yeah, I met. Well, let's see. I met Tommy Lee from Motley Crue. My very first
No
table
way.
read. Yeah,
What? Your very first? Is that unreal? Where you do you get nervous?
not about meeting Tommy Lee because it was so quick. I'm just walking there, and then here's this guy walking next to me, and the casting director Bonnie. She said, "Oh, by the way, this is Tommy Lee. Tommy Lee, this is Chris." I'm like, hey, dude, I can't believe I'm up this early. It's like I can't believe you're Tommy Lee. Yeah. That stuff happens so often with that show that
Yes.
I mean, I met Stan Lee at the record, and I mean, it's a long list of names. I remember when Lady Gaga did the show. That's where I thought this is getting a little surreal now.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. But it was all
Oh my
great.
God.
Yeah, but it was all great. But at the same time, I started doing exactly what you're doing right now.
So you do utility for like you're in and out all the time, right? But
Right. Yeah.
I hope I get to see you. If I do the voila and you're there, it'll be nice to
Do
see your face.
you go in for the Walla, or do you
No,
do
I
it?
do it. I do it here.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, usually they will never overlap it, but back then, back when we were all recording at the Marge Simpson stage, like, did you ever get to go into the Marge Simpson stage?
I
The
sure
Fox?
didn't.
You didn't?
No.
Okay.
I
Maybe
just
one of
did
these
the Zoom
days.
ensemble over here, and I'm like, yes,
Okay.
awesome.
Because there would be times where I would do an ADR and the Walla crew would be there just finishing or coming in after me. And I would say, hey, what's up? And these were people I already
Yeah.
knew.
Yeah.
And we would, pass in the hallway there. Then since it's been a few years that you're sort of in the groove now with the agency. And even though you don't get the advantage of going in and then seeing everybody face to face, and there was a whole protocol back then where we would go in, they would have our copy for us if we didn't print it out, and you would sit
Right.
there in the lobby and you would read over your copy and then go into the booth. Now I'm sure you did that to some degree, right?
Yes, I got to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that you have started to book some things, are there cases where they'll send you an audition and you'll think, wow, you guys think I can do this? All right, let me try. And then you realize, oh, I can. Maybe they heard something that I didn't know about.
Yes, they surprise me all the time with the stuff they send me, and I don't, we play, we use our vocal, we try new things, and if I don't know an accent, I'll do the worst of its kind until it kind of gets there. Like there's no way to do it until you play with it. So
Yeah.
even when they send me a copy that maybe I'm a little like, we'll see what happens.
Right.
It'll be my authentic version of whatever that is, and I'm like, it's perfect to me. Like, it might not be what they're looking for, but whatever's the authentic version of whatever I can bring to life on that page is good.
Yeah, I would think that if an Italian one came along, just based on your exposure to it, like I took Italian in college. So, I mean, I don't remember much of it at all, but I could at least get the accent going and then
Yeah.
right. And once you get warmed up, then
Yes.
it kind of flows a bit. Obviously,
Right.
Indian you're not going to have a problem with, especially if they get really
Right.
regionally specific.
Right.
Right. But are there ones that you've tried that you thought, okay, I did that better than I thought I could?
Yes, actually, I recently did one for Bugs Bunny for Builders.
Yeah.
I played an Australian character, and
Okay.
when they asked me to do it, I was like, what? Like, Australian to me it's the hardest. Should we be saying this? I don't know, but
Yeah.
I did a great job, and it
Okay.
landed. So that was one of the ones I surprised myself because, yeah, we could play with anything, and luckily we can, I could YouTube things and practice, and there's like so many tools to help us polish ourselves before we even hit record, which is beautiful about it. So
Yeah.
and being in voiceover, we have a good ear for like how does this sound, like what's
Yes.
the musicality of it.
Yes.
So,
And a lot of those resources didn't exist back in the day. I used to tell the other voice actors, because this is before YouTube, I said, guys, you have to go to accents.com. I don't know if it still exists, but there was a paragraph they would give people to read. It was the exact same paragraph, and they went to every country in the world. They would find every major city, even the rural areas, and they would get people who were natives to that area, and they would have them all read the exact same thing. So if you wanted to audition for somebody who was from a specific point on the map, you could select it and hear it. And that was my resource. And it helped me, I think, book a few things. Now, you just go to YouTube and look for it. What accent? Boom. Someone's doing a video on it.
Yeah, that's very impressive. I mean, to do this stuff without all the technology and tools that we have is very impressive, because it's what makes us creators. To just get out of scratch. And
well, that makes me curious then. What made you attracted to voice acting in addition to on camera? Like on camera, usually people tell some version of the same story. I love to perform for people. I love to make a connection with an audience. And, sometimes I like to show off. But with voice acting, it's more specific. It's still acting, as you know. But what made you think, you know what, I think I can get by just doing a voice here. I think I don't need anything else to tell this story.
So what just got me into voice acting completely is just I just love the aim and the everything I do is for kids. Like, I just love to make kids laugh, and like that it's always been my goal, is to just be loony, funny. The tune aspect of it has always been the silly thing that I've chased and wanted. So I love storytelling, of course. I love on camera as well, but I love that it doesn't matter what you look like, who you are. You could just like transform and be literally anything when you're in animation. So I just like the play of it. It's so goofy and silly, and I love that part of it. And I think you asked me earlier, and I got sidetracked in my rambles, but what was my like kind of game changer of what made me, I think, start doing a little better? And I worked with Charlie Adler, and I took a couple of his classes, and I took it consistent. I took I think two courses in a row. And getting in his booth and having him give me direction changed everything, because he was probably the first person that made me forget myself. And you've met him, I'm sure, right? And
I've worked with him. He's directed me in things. And
incredible, yes.
He is overflowing with talent, personality, charm, warmth, gruffness. I mean, he's everything. What's Charlie like? Everything. He's all of it.
He's literally all of it. He's everything. And so he was someone that shaped me, and he would shape me on the spot in a way that he spoke to me, and watching him speak to other people in the courses that I was taking too was like everything just clicked for me, and the way that he would present it, demonstrate for us, so he was not just sitting there giving you advice. He's like, right. He'll like really, so he was definitely my game changer when it came to this. Did you study with anyone? Were you ever...
No, I was a drama minor in college, only because I transferred from a smaller school. I went to University of Georgia, and they said, we're only going to accept 30 of your 90 credits that you have if you want to go to the drama school. And I said, well, I ain't going to your drama school then. I'm not dumping 2 years of work. The journalism school said, we'll take all 90 of your credits. And I said, all right, I'm a journalism major. And I became a drama minor, which means I could take 2 acting classes, so I took both of them. I got a D in one of them.
Really? No way.
I was an A and B student throughout college. I had like 3 C's, and everything else is A's and B's. The only D I ever got, acting.
What were you doing? Or what weren't you doing?
I actually got decent scores for my actual acting, but we had to write like a term paper. I turned mine in late. I had a scene partner do things late. Plus, I think the teacher just decided, I'm going to make an example of you. I was made an example of a lot. I got kicked out of a play I was in because I missed a rehearsal. And
you want to say their names right now to teach them real lessons?
Nah.
Got you, Mr. Robinson. It was you.
Yeah, exactly. I was not happy about either development either. But it just teaches you that, hey, life ain't fair. right?
Yes,
Sometimes there's
yes.
someone who has leverage over you, and if they decide they don't like you, they can make your life difficult. And welcome to life, and especially show business too.
Right.
There are casting directors that I've read for that I have literally never booked a job for, and 20 years later they still have me read for things. I'm thinking, all right, I'm happy to do it, but I don't know why you keep calling me, but
See,
I'll
that's
do
the
it.
stuff I love hearing though, because I feel like I get those too, and I'm like, all right, here we go then.
Yeah, all right, let's run this one up the flagpole, right? Why
Yeah,
not?
that's nice.
But I guess I got a little bit of study in there, but frankly, I don't think I was all that great shakes as an actor back then. But I was very enthusiastic. I was very
Right.
passionate about it, and I learned later through just literally hundreds of shows as a comedian, performing for a crowd,
Yes.
learning rhythm,
Stand up.
timing. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it is innate. I'm sure you have just natural timing that you can refine, right?
Right.
But I think what good acting study does is just what you said Charlie Adler did for you. Gets you
Yeah.
outside of yourself, has you stop judging yourself, and just has you remember that, you're here to just perform. You're not trying to book a job. You're here to
Right.
authentically portray a character, your version of that character. And even if you don't book it, it doesn't mean that you weren't brilliant. They just might have wanted something else.
Exactly.
You have to have that
Exactly.
in your
And
head.
that's why they're still calling you 20 years later, because it had nothing to do with probably, if you were right for it or whatever else, but they
Right.
loved your work, so they're still calling you in.
Well, and you're going to find that you're going to have some champions out there. You're going to have people that get you. They get Chandni. They say, she knows exactly what we're going to want. She knows how to
Right.
do it. She can do it in a couple of takes. Boom, done. You will even, if that hasn't happened already, you will find that after a while, some jobs are going to be handed to you because it'll be a director that's worked with you and they'll need to fill out the cast and they'll think, let's get Chandni in here. She can do
I
it.
love that. Can I ask you, so are you still auditioning or are you getting offered all day? Because
No,
I
I don't
imagine
get
you're
offered.
like, yeah,
No,
I'll take it, I'll
the,
pass.
I'm not in that tier of person. Like, I will still go in there and grind it out. So I'll still send in auditions. I don't read. It used to be I read every single thing they sent me, and I mean everything. And I would get a lot. I mean, I'd knock on wood. I would get a lot of stuff.
I mean, your range, you're probably reading for roles that girls are reading for all the time too.
Not in
Like,
that case, no. But
oh.
but
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 you can.
I think you would probably be better than me. But I
Yeah,
got to
I've
a,
heard some of your impressions.
the
I'm sure you could sound pretty close.
the only woman I can authentically do is I can sound like my mom. I do a pretty good mom. It's actually kind of scary, but yeah. But I will occasionally pass on something because it's going to be a throat ripper. It'll be for like a video game, and I try to keep my voice pristine for The Simpsons because they
Yeah.
give me a workout and I need to be spot on for them. But
Right.
there'll be other things I'll read for if I look at it and I just think to myself, I don't think I'm going to get it anyway, and if I do book it, I don't think I'm going to enjoy it. And I never thought I would say those words to myself. But there are certain jobs I just think, it's going to be tedious. I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
And
I understand. Yeah.
but I'm sure that sounds insane for you to hear. It's like, what are you, crazy? It's like, no.
Right now I read for everything, but I know which ones you're. I mean, there's some ones. Video games could be very dark. When some of the scripts that I read for video games, I'm like, okay, so I'm screaming, trapped in a corner,
Yeah,
and I
it's
need to
like,
be rescued. I'm like, do I
no.
want to be in this headspace?
Yeah.
But I'm gonna.
Let's put it this way. I have a painting in my house that I bought. Oh, this is coming up on about, I'm going to say 17 years ago, almost 18 years ago. I have a painting, and I got it from a Z Gallery. This nice little chain of stores that has nice stuff for the home. And I got it for one reason. I was doing a Lord of the Rings video game, and I've done over 100 games, which sounds like a lot until you see some of the contemporaries I have who have done 300 games, right?
Yeah, but 100. That's a lot.
It's a lot, right? But this was one of those 100 games, and it was Lord of the Rings. It was a sort of a battle game where you are looking at large armies that are fighting each other, and I was doing all kinds of death noises. I was doing every kind of death noise, and at one point they say, okay, you're being eaten alive by an Oliphant. All right, you're being shot and killed by a flaming arrow. And it was a 2-hour session, and after 1 hour, my head started to go boo, 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 boo. And I thought, this is not fun anymore, but I'm pro. I'm going to do the job. I didn't complain. It's not my place to complain. You know, I just did it. I was very happy to be working, but I thought to myself, this is work. This feels like work. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go buy myself something nice after this, damn it.
Yeah,
And
I love that. Your reward. Good.
Because I had been to the Z Gallery before I went into the studio. I liked the painting. I went in there and I bought that damn painting. And every time I walk by it, I think, Lord of the Rings.
Worth it. All worth it. Yes.
Worth it.
That's amazing. That is a good reward, and that's good. That's a nice balance for you too, to make it feel like
yes,
it's all worth it.
Yes. Well, it has been worth it for me to wait to talk to you. I'm sorry we don't have more time. We'll have to catch up again, maybe in person if I find myself in town. Yeah.